I'm gonna say something polarizing. I'm gonna just come out and say it. And this is gonna rile a lot of feathers. Because it needs to be said. There's a lot of people that need to hear this. Are you ready? I don't think you're ready. Are you ready? Are you sure? Arc Raiders is a PvP game. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you guys that Arc Raiders is a PvP game. I want to dive into this a little bit because it seems like there's an awful lot of people that are floating around on message boards. I hate to say Reddit, but there's a lot of Reddit, there's a lot of Twitter, there's a lot of YouTube videos, there's a lot of comments all over the place about how Arc Raiders is supposed to be intended to be one way or the other. There's a lot of people that this game appeals to from the PvE side of things because the arcs, the bots, are really difficult. They are. The number of times that I have been third-partied by a Rocketeer is high double digits at this point for the number of raids that I've ran. You die constantly to a wide variety of things. You're trying to rush down other teams for PvP interactions. You end up getting killed due to some of the arcs and how they interact with us and the dangerous nature of them. But at the same time, because of that dangerous nature, and because the game originally, in its early days, was intended to be a PvE-centric game that the devs themselves regarded as saying it was too boring, which shifted into a PvP-centric game. Well, maybe not centric. PvP is a very, very large part of this game. To say that the PvE is extremely difficult and the idea is to try to, like, quote-unquote band together at times, I feel as though that got taken very, very much to heart by the people on the PvE side of things. And I want to talk about the dynamic between the two sides and explain why everybody in this game, whether it's PvE-centric or PvP-centric, everybody in this game needs each other for this game to last more than a few weeks. There are a lot of people that have decided to tip their toe into the extraction shooting game genre for the first time with Arc Raiders. If that's you, welcome, brothers and sisters. For a little background, I started my time in extraction games nearly 8 years ago with the game Escape from Tarkov, commonly viewed as the daddy of all extraction games. Tarkov wasn't the first, but it is viewed as the game that defined what the extraction genre really is and was, taking a lot of inspiration from games like DayZ, PUBG, The Division's Dark Zone, and Arma, and turning that into something genre-defining. Since then, I've amassed over 20,000 hours in extraction game titles, a lot of which are now defunct, while others still yet attempt to make it where others have failed. In a prior video, I glazed Arc Raiders pretty heavily, and it turns out it was with good reason. Although I'm not a fan of Nexon, who fully owns Embark Studios, the creators of Arc Raiders, they're disconnected enough to where I believe in supporting the devs themselves, as opposed to paying attention to Nexon's monetarily benefiting from it. That being said, we need to have a conversation, albeit I believe an important one, about the nature of Arc Raiders, the premise behind the game, how people are supposed to play, and the punches that seemingly are getting thrown between gamers that want to be able to play the game in the way that they believe it should be played and how they want to play it. So I'll first start off with this clip from my friend Clean. Now, whether that made you laugh or whether that pissed you off probably defines the type of gamer that you are. But to back up just a little bit, Arc Raiders did the thing that nearly every game dev that has tried this has failed miserably at. Create a game that simultaneously appeals to both the player versus player style of players and the player versus environment style of players. All too often, games that have attempted to do this, most recently, for example, Funcom with Dune Awakening, end up losing one or the other when attempting to do both. Dune had a fantastic campaign that ultimately led people to the deep desert, where PvP and lawlessness was supposed to be the guiding principle. That was the thing that PvP players were willing to wade through in order to get to the deep desert as the big PvP payoff. But with this came the identity crisis that games doing this end up facing. PvE players want to focus on doing PvE content and don't want to have to look over their shoulder while doing PvE fights. Funcom modified this lawless zone to be PvP player safe for about half of it, which jaded the PvP players that were wanting to enjoy this lawless area, who quit playing, myself being one of them, and the player counts dropped off meteorically, having the active player base inside of 2 weeks of its announcement. Today, the daily peak player counts are just under 10,000 concurrent players. Arc Raiders has attempted to do this same thing with astounding early success. To date, Arc has probably done the best job in history of attempting to create a centrally served, immersive, and visceral gaming experience that has attracted both PvE-centric and PvP-centric players to the extraction genre. But the problem is in the narrative that people want to follow. Originally, Arc Raiders was created as a PvE-only game in its early development years, but as a producer at Embark put it, the game just, quote, was not fun, end quote, which then had them shift to a game in which PvP was not only involved, but integral to the game's core focus. Embark put this twist on it, though, where although the PvE bots that we fight aren't super numerous, they are very much deadly and will ruin run after run after run if you don't show them the respect they deserve. Because of this difficulty, players naturally, especially in the solo game, start making friends, tweets, and articles start getting made within the first few days of launch about how chill so many solo raiders were and are, and how groups of people were banding together to create this sense of unity, humanity against the clankers, and the uplifting message permeating throughout Arc Raiders left everyone feeling warm and fuzzy inside. Unless, of course, you were someone that wanted to PvP, like my man Clean here, who wanted to remind people they need to stay on their toes. If you are someone that's new to extraction games and you came across Arc Raiders and wanted to give it a shot, you may not yet know that the successful ones are intentionally designed around this idea of if both people agree that there's peace, there can be somewhat of a very tenuous, fragile peace, and it only takes a little push to make everyone on edge. The nature of these games is one in which if you die, you lose everything, and you also become someone that can be looted. People get to take your shit, and in this game, you'll never see your shit ever again, even if they don't take it, because in this game, there's no insurance returns. So if you have someone that is loot hungry enough, they will do whatever they can to make it as easy for them as they can in order to take your shit for themselves. And Arc Raiders gives people the tools they need in order to befriend and or betray everyone a player comes across. Things like in-game VoIP, letting people chat up others, negotiate, try to smooth things over, maybe offer up some helpful meds to somebody, maybe give people some items or loot or treasure they found, maybe even a gun, and then backstab them once they've carried everything close enough to the extract to where you don't have to lug it so far anymore. To a lot of people, this manner of player is cowardly or awful behavior. Dishonorable, sure, but to those on the receiving end of all the loot, it was pretty efficient, no? The rules of engagement in games like Arc Raiders is that there aren't any rules, which is the entire point of this video. PvE-centric players get frustrated by PvP-centric players that end up killing them, yelling at the PvP players that beat them or catch them unaware, or catch them being too trustworthy. PvP players get frustrated by PvE players in that they take to Reddit to try to appeal to the better nature of the Embark devs to do something, to change how the game works or ask for a solely PvE-only mode, to which I say no, that is not a solution. And here's why. When you create a PvE-only mode, or a separate instance of the game for PvE only, yes, it creates a safe haven for players that would prefer that. But it also makes the game significantly shorter-lived and significantly more boring. And I mean this on a macro level, not for individuals. Sure, on an individual basis, there will be certain people that would live in that and run it back over and over and over again. But if we're talking macro numbers, the games that do this don't traditionally survive. PvE players over time begin to figure out how to trivialize their PvE encounters they come across. They will learn spawn points, patrol routes, habits, attack patterns, etc. And they will learn how to exploit them either from experimentation or instruction from others' work. In reality, the thing that everyone that plays extraction games wants is to struggle. They want to be on and ride the struggle bus. Overcoming the adversity and the adrenaline that comes with overcoming it is the thing that everyone playing an extraction game ultimately ends up chasing. There is no greater adversity than a smart player with good game sense and good aim that's wearing really good stuff. And when you beat them, whoo, oh boy. But PvE players that get killed by these PvP chads need to have those PvP chads killing them. Let me explain. PvE only game modes become runs of discovery that lead to efficiency. PvP players interrupt this and cause the game's progress to slow down. Slower game progress increases frustration, but it also directly increases the dopamine hit when you end up ultimately accomplishing the goal. Greater adversity leads to greater payoff. Also, the PvP players, and especially PvP players that betray other people, end up making the truly helpful and friendly moments that much more special. If everyone is a friendly guy, people stop valuing the friendly guy. PvP, in a lot of ways, is the antithesis to PvE. It is the dark to PvE's light. PvP play is the yang to PvE's yin. And I would argue that the payoff for a PvE player surviving, and hell, even thriving, in a PvP-enabled world is significantly greater and more satisfying than doing so without the PvP threat. For the PvP players, the feeling is the same, not because they're farming the PvE Timbos, but because PvPers thinking that the only thing bringing them joy is fighting others are also wrong. By this point, if you've played much Arc Raiders, you know what it's like to be on the receiving end of an overzealous Rocketeer barrage. It has ruined so many runs. When a Rocketeer has left a PvP-centric player within an inch of their life, if only then to come across another player, say, oh shit, to themselves right before assumptively kissing their own ass goodbye, and then, luckily, have that oncoming player instead say the words, hey man, I'm friendly, do you need any help? The massive sigh of relief is something that every single PvP gamer in extraction games can attest to. That doesn't mean they're always going to be trustworthy, but they can attest to it. If everyone on the map is a PvP hypersweat, it removes the charisma check from the board and makes the game significantly more boring, linear, and less diverse. Even if those interactions are rare, it's still something of note, and those moments in gaming are the things we all end up carrying with us. No one really remembers the 15th run without coming across another player getting your loot and leaving unscathed, but those interaction moments in time where people were kind in a cutthroat place, or when someone was a jerk when people thought they should have been kind, those stick with you. They modify how you play. That being said, extraction games like this aren't for everyone, and there will be very frustrating moments. Some of them brought about by the AI, and sometimes it will be brought about by other players. But the best part about games like this is you can attempt to define what fun means to you inside of them, and you have an opportunity to shape how these narratives go. Maybe you'll be the friendly person that sways the cutthroat, or maybe you'll be the cutthroat that breaks the friendly player bad. But regardless of what type of player you are, the intention here is that in order for folks to survive and thrive in an extraction game, they need to persevere, regardless of what occurs around them or to them. Respawn has given us the guide rails in which to do one or the other, or hell, float between both. The real question is if you're going to play this game for a while, yet to come, let's say, should you blame others for how they act in any given situation, or should you try to be more savvy in who you interact with and how? To me, the latter part of that question ends up feeling significantly more interesting to explore than the former, but that's just me.